hard against this mountainside, across the sea into my soul. It reaches into where I cannot hide, setting my feet upon the road. My heart is old, it holds my memories. My body burns a gem-like flame, somewhere between the soul and soft machine is where I find myself again. slipping, slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. I wanna fly like an eagle to the sea. Fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an eagle till I'm free. I go through the revolution. Feed the babies who don't have enough to eat. Shoot the children with no shoes on their feet. House the people living in the street. Oh, there's a solution. I want to fly like an eagle to the sea. Fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an eagle till I'm free. Right through the revolution. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. I want to fly like an eagle to the sea. Fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an eagle till I'm free. Right through the revolution. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. There's a lady who's sure all it glitters is gold, and she's buying the stairway to heaven. When she gets there, she knows if the stores are all closed, with a word she can get what she came for. And she's buying a stairway here. There's a sign on the wall, but she wants to be sure, 'cause you know sometimes words have two meanings. In a tree by the brook, there's a songbird who sings. Sometimes all of our thoughts are misgiven. It makes me wonder. Makes me wonder. There's a feeling I get when I look to the west, and my spirit is crying for leaving. In my thoughts I have seen rings of smoke through the trees, and the voices of those who stand up here. It makes me wonder. Really makes me wonder. And it's whispered that soon, if we all call the tune, then the piper will lead us to reason, and a new day will dawn for those who stand long, and the forests will echo with laughter. If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alone there. It's just a sprinkling for the May Queen. Yes, there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. And it makes me wonder. Your head is humming and it won't go. In case you don't know, the piper's calling you to join him. Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? And did you know your stairway lies on the whispering wind? guess that's just the way the story goes. You always smile, but in your eyes your sorrow shows. Yes, it shows. No, I can't forget tomorrow when I think of all my sorrow. Well, I had you there, but then I let you go. And now it's only fair that I should let you know what you should know. I can't live if living is without you. I can't live, I can't give anymore. I can't live if living is without you. I can't give anymore. Well, I can't forget this evening or your face as you were leaving, but I guess that's just the way the story goes. You always smile, but in your eyes your sorrow shows. Yes, it shows. Welcome, my son. Welcome to the machine.
if anyone is waiting for a lanyard to hold your badge, if you meet me at this stage, I can give you a lanyard. Thank you.
Welcome, my son. Welcome to the machine. British Army had just won the war. A crowd of people turned away, but I just had to look, having read the book. I'd love to turn you on. I read the news today, oh boy. 4,000 holes in Blackburn, Lancashire. And though the holes were rather small, they had to count them all. Now they know how many holes it takes to fill the Albert Hall. I'd love to turn you on.
Can I have your attention, please? If you are sitting in the main ballroom on the edges of the room, we're going to ask you to please vacate those seats so we can clear the lunch area and get started. We'll be starting the sessions back up at 2 p.m. Again, if you're seated in the cocktail tables in the main ballroom, please vacate those seats. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the program will resume in 10 minutes.
1, 2. Hey, 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 hey. Yeah, yeah.
Did you see the lights as they fell all around you? Did you hear the music of serenade from the stars? Wake up, wake up, wake up and look around you. We're lost in space and the time is our own. Did you feel the wind as it blew all around you? Did you feel the love that was in the air? Wake up, wake up, wake up and look around you. We're lost in space and the time is our own.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch. We are going to ask everyone to be seated. If you'd like to continue your conversation, you could take your dialogues outside of the room to be respectful of the speakers coming up on stage, please. A quick reminder, who's coming to our party this evening? Can I get a show of hands? That's it? So we only need like 10 beers? That's it? Who's coming to our party this evening? Okay, 5 beers it is. All right, we're gonna get ready to get started. So again, if you're still having conversations, please take them outside of the ballroom. Also, just a reminder, we've got 2 different networking spaces. So if you haven't been to the one out this way, be sure to stop by there. The bar will be fully stocked for the cocktail reception in that room as well. And historically, they've seen a smaller line. So insider tip for those in the room. I'm going to ask Mike to come on up and kick us off for the afternoon.
Hello, everyone. All right, that was some pretty weak sauce energy on the who's joining the party. I feel like I embarrassed myself wooing. I heard myself. I don't know what's up with that. All right, guys, we got a really good lineup for you for the rest of the afternoon here. We're going to be kicking things off with the future of financial services. So in that kickoff talk with David Mercer, we talked about the Venn diagram, financial services, crypto. Those 2 things are smushing together. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of what that means with this next panel. So without any further ado, I want to welcome our panelists up to the stage. Please give them a warm welcome. Happens to the best of us.
That's what happened. Okay. Okay. Oh, thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Jacqueline Melnick. I'm one of the reporters with Blockworks, and I'm here with our 4 speakers. Ziad, if you would like to introduce yourself first.
My name is Ziad Iskandar. I work at BNY Mellon, part of the Digital Assets Unit. I'm Ben Reynolds. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Silvergate Bank.
Andrew Peel, Head of Digital Asset Markets, Morgan Stanley.
I'm Joel Edgerton. I'm Head of Americas for Ledger.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. I want to start this off because it's a panel on the future of financial services and digital assets. My first question was, what is the demand like right now? What are you seeing from clients or in general? Is there a need for the two to work together, or should they exist separately?
I'll start off. While I can't get to specific client discussions, obviously, overall in aggregate, there's been tremendous expression of interest and demand for products and services in the digital asset world, and that's been ongoing. As far as your point towards working with the ecosystem at large, we definitely think that we don't need to know it all or build it all, and as some of you have seen in some of the announcements, we've partnered with the best in class to build our solutions, if you will.
Yeah, so at Silvergate, we're really institutionally focused. We've been banking clients in the industry since 2014. It's really a mix of exchanges and institutional investors, and then this group that we call Other, which is really folks that are building software and protocols. We have about 1,200 clients, all institutional in the digital currency space, and we have we call it it's our pipeline, but in some ways it's a waiting list of about 200 clients that are looking for bank accounts. So it's pretty incredible that it's 2021 and we still have 200 digital currency related clients that are looking for bank accounts. And to put that number in perspective, we added about 100 clients in the second quarter and about 100 clients in the first quarter. So yeah, we're seeing lots of demand.
Yeah, I would say on our side, I think really noticed in the last 18 months that there's significant interest from the likes of the macro investors, Bitcoin as part of a diversified portfolio, and I think it was really kickstarted by the whole Paul Tudor Jones macro piece, the great monetary inflation. I think that piece published to the world was really the topic that started the conversations with more traditional investors. So we do have a small offering to private wealth management clients, Bitcoin as an asset class, and then we are also considering what potentially could be the next move, depending on, of course, the regulatory topics as a Wall Street bank.
Yeah, I mean, the institutional side of the business, if you look at traditional finance, they're obviously moving in there as fast as their compliance officer will allow them, as fast as regulators will allow them to do it. On the traditional, not on the crypto side, if you ask the crypto guys, they'll say, no, we don't need traditional finance. But yeah, they do, because that's where the cash is coming. You got to have that on-ramp coming in. So the two need to work together. I think they're more adversaries in general, but the two need to work together. And where we're going to go with finance is going to be a massive, massive change. Traditional finance has too much technical debt. They have too bad of a customer experience, and they've got this freight train of crypto coming down. So they're going to have to react, and eventually they're going to have to work together.
Mm-hmm. Right, Joel, you touched on a point about working together, and with that, how do you think the innovation in the financial sector will add digital assets to that equation?
The innovation is really fascinating. It's almost like a Cambrian explosion of innovation, particularly on the DeFi side. And it's been mentioned earlier in the panels. This is really, really, really early. The use cases are still being figured out. How everything's going to work. There was a conversation about traditional finance is more based on relationships, while crypto is more based on protocols and interactions. So how these things work together, I don't know. But the innovation is really amazing. And I think the traditional finance side needs to kind of wake up to that and get involved in that. Even if they can't really do anything about it, they definitely need to educate themselves, just like the regulators need to educate themselves. And that's something on the crypto side we should be helping ease them into that path, because it's going to be easier on the crypto side if they can make that transition as quickly as possible.
Right.
I mean, I guess you can look back for the last 5 or 6 years and the use of enterprise DLT with exchanges, with DTCC. Australian Stock Exchange started a project back in 2015, 2016, still not yet live in production. There's been some pilot projects with settlement companies, DTCC, Clearstream, Euroclear, and so forth. These things are just kind of still in these initial stages of moving trades into production, where it's been 6 years. And when you look at what happened in DeFi 1 year ago, you had like $800 million of assets interacting with DeFi, and within the space of 12 months, there's like $180 billion. And that's testament to the fact that one is a very private, permissioned blockchain network, which requires a lot of collaboration and a lot of interaction with traditional financial systems, multiple counterparties, software that needs upgrading. We have this legacy software, which you mentioned, limits certain activities. And then you look at the permissionless open blockchain world, where you can have 24/7 developers from anywhere in the world collaborating on Discord. You start to see the power of that flexible, composable, open permissionless blockchain world versus traditional development cycles.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's still a massive need for people to get their kind of real world assets into digital assets, right? And that's where Silvergate comes in the sense of providing on-ramps and off-ramps between, fiat dollars and, digital currencies. And it's just amazing, what a problem, that still is. I mean, there's still just a handful of banks, that serve this industry. And so, I think that's going to be, it's going to be interesting to see, when you talk about the intersection between these two worlds, how quickly people can move from one to the other is sort of constrained by their banking relationships and what banks allow you to do with your money. And so, it's interesting sitting up here with a bunch of, traditional folks, but.
Yeah, we're not traditional.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when we talk about innovation, coming back to your question, we talk about innovation, I mean, at BNY Mellon, bank's 237 years old, right? Not decades, we've been doing this for centuries. Number one, gaining the trust of our clients. That's the number one thing that we continue to do. And innovate. We issued the first US currency coin. It was called the Fujio, a few hundred years ago. So innovation is what we do. And we evolve with our client needs, obviously, by maintaining the trust they have in us and making sure that we meet them where they are in terms of products and services. Digital assets is the latest iteration of that. It's a natural continuum. You think about some of the products we offer and services that we offer, and when we think about, we've custodied physical safekeeping of physical assets, then we did digital safekeeping of physical assets, and now we're going to do digital safekeeping of digital assets. So the thought process hasn't changed, other than keep innovating and keep up with what the client needs are currently. And right now, when we talk about digital assets, to be clear, at the BNY Mellon, we speak about, of course, we speak about Bitcoin and Ether, but, tokenized assets, securities, stable coins, really the whole spectrum of digital assets. There's not one division in the bank that's not looking at what is their activity going to be, how they're going to offer a value add on top of that platform. Crypto's being the tip of the spear right now, because that's where, back to your first question, this is where the client need manifests itself right now.
Right. Great. And then I guess with regards to traditional financial services, there are those new systems being built and they're being integrated, but how do you see those overlapping in the future?
Yeah, I think we've seen some now intersection. If you look at the European Investment Bank recently issued listed bond on public Ethereum. So that's an example of where you have an open permissions blockchain with a native asset, Ethereum, being used for traditional securities issuance. So there's some overlap, but it's still super early. Yeah.
We clearly need again, talking about the intersection, we need on-ramps and off-ramps into the traditional systems. And this is where a lot of the providers and the innovation that we see in fintechs, and thus the collaboration that we have a robust practice of engaging with fintechs to enable these solutions. So we need them and they need us. That's quite obvious.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting dynamics, and it's always debatable how much you talk about regulation on a panel like this, but when you're talking about the intersection of, distributed networks and the legacy financial system, it's hard to sort of ignore regulation. And so I think, that's a big piece of it. I don't think regulators are necessarily to be feared. I think they want to do the right thing. They want to see the innovation flourish, but regulators don't get paid to take risk. They get paid to protect the citizens. And so you can't fault them for doing their job. And so I really think that it's, if we as an industry want to see the technology move forward and see more intersection between, the distributed world and the traditional world, then it's upon all of us, upon all the builders, to meet with regulators and talk to them about the technology and what you're doing and what the risks are and how you plan to mitigate those risks. We've had a lot of really good conversations with our regulators. We're a California state chartered bank, and we're a member of the Federal Reserve, and our deposits are FDIC insured. So we get to talk to lots of regulators lots of times. And I think people underestimate how much they know about the technology, but they have limited resources, and they need to try to figure out, where do I need to spend those resources, right? Are NFTs really going to be a thing, or are they not going to be a thing? Because if they're not going to be a thing, I want to as a regulator, spend a bunch of time learning about them, only to figure out, oh wait, you know what? This industry moved so quickly, now they're on to something else. So I think, that sort of elephant in the room, if you will, on this topic is probably, regulation and how that intersects the two worlds.
Yeah, just kind of add on to that. Most of the time when I talk to customers, one of the regulator piece definitely comes up, but probably the point I hear the most is I don't have enough IT resources to do this stuff, right? I've got a pipeline of 6 months, I've got a pipeline of a year. There's not enough IT resources to do this. What's the prioritization of this versus everything else? What's going to make money versus what is the foundation to make sure it just works? And the focus tends to be the part that makes money rather than the part that it just works. And then you have stuff that breaks, you have smart contracts where you have rug pulls or whatever, and then people lose trust, right? At the end of the day, I think, the crypto world is moving into that DeFi space. I think finance is going to move into that DeFi space where you're going to be trusting the protocols, you're going to be interacting with people, you don't even know who they are, but you're trusting the protocols that the transaction is going to work, right? And we've built over the last, hundreds of years, thousands of years, depending on how far you want to go back, all of these different systems of trust, whether it's IT systems or just people systems and processes that are made to handle trust, right? If that gets wiped out, the efficiency gains are massive. So I think we have to rethink how these transactions are done, not just as far as digital assets, but eventually real world assets as well are going to be digitalized, and we're going to have these transactions. And that's one of the things that we're really happy to talk to customers about at Ledger is we want to build that infrastructure and help them have that transaction and listen to their use cases. And how do we make that DeFi world happen for institutions?
I want to address one of the audience members here yesterday at the dinner accused me of he said, what are you going to talk about? And Bitcoin. He said, well, that's boring. We're on the, I said, and I think about that word. Part of what we do is for our clients who need to get involved, and I'll split clients that are clients that want to deliberately get involved and others that are getting pulled in, right? Because they're invested in something that's generating some digital asset or crypto returns. Our job is to take the complexity away from it and make sure that they're dealing with this in a compliant way. That's what we do. Take something that's the excitement they find in the movement, in the asset price movement, They don't want the excitement to be in the settlement or any of that process. So take it and make it boring for me. So yes, we do that. The other part of that accusation is, like, as I said, is the tip of the spear is cryptos right now, but we're really looking to build a platform that goes well beyond. We're not moving at the speed of, people sitting and have no restrictions whatsoever to innovate, which is great. And for players, for our clients, and for ourselves, we need the ecosystem to mature. And in cryptos, it has matured, like the supporting functions that you need and the companies that provide those functions. That has matured quite a bit in the crypto. And hopefully that'll be exactly the same down the line for other digital assets as well.
I mean, you think back 3 years ago, after 3 or 4 years with Bitcoin, I think a lot of what we're seeing today in terms of the institutional interest is a function of that. People looking in them privately in their personal account, thinking about Bitcoin as a potential asset. The infrastructure, or people leaving the industry, traditional financial industry, moving to crypto. We saw a lot of a trend of that throughout 2017, 2018. Significant investment by larger financial players into the infrastructure, which kind of paved the way for this infrastructure where now you can actually execute significantly more volume and have far more depth of liquidity on these venues compared to 17 used to try and log into some of the web front ends on the exchanges back in 17 when there was a big spike in the price and you just couldn't. And even with API connectivity, they were down and you couldn't place an order. So now I think what we're seeing at the moment is all of the work that everybody's been doing in the last 3 or 4 years across the crypto industry from traditional financial market backgrounds with some more sophisticated infrastructure, which paved the way for this current liquidity that's being taken advantage of, or let's say being accessed by traditional financial institutions. But really now, as you said, in terms of the interesting area, and to your point, now Bitcoin, this kind of, as part of a portfolio, is now more of a given, if you will. It's like, how do people get access? But in the meantime, the whole world of DeFi has just exploded, and really that's where some of the significant innovation is and interest in the space. And maybe we see that being more utilized 3 or 4 years down the line from here, or even faster.
So at the next conference, Bitcoin is traditional finance?
Exactly right. You talked about DeFi a little bit, Andrew, and I was just wondering if we could expand upon that altogether, about how that sector is growing at such a rapid pace. Traditional finance has been around for hundreds of years, and we've had these banks around for hundreds of years as well. But with the DeFi space, it's fairly new, and we're seeing this growth. How do you think that's going to continue to evolve?
For sure. The difficult part is when you first maybe hear about that space, like you hear about Sushi Swap, and you're told you put your dollars in, or Pancake Swap with a bunny as an icon, and you're going to send your dollars to this smart contract, and you're going to get like 300% yield. You probably write it off, and you probably don't think maybe it's really what's behind that in terms of the innovation. You just think it's crazy. It's like this NFT craze. It's going to go away. Well, it doesn't go away. And having spent most of career as a structured products trader, traditional business where you have all of these different interconnecting systems, multiple reconciliations, a lot of like complex risk systems to monitor it. And you start to see that everything that you used to monitor or everything that you had to do as a process across multiple systems is embedded in a smart contract. Then you start to see, well, this is, it's fascinating. It's like yield farming is like being short gamma on an option, in my view, where you're earning yield, which is your theta. It's digging past all of the terminology or the hype, you start to see some real value.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, there's a lot of talk about DeFi, but how many people are really participating in it? And the people that are participating in it are participating in a big way. But in order to participate, you have to figure a lot of things out, right? You have to figure out MetaMask, and you have to figure out, how to get in back and forth between, stable coins and Ethereum and, Aave and all of the different tokens, right? And there's so much to sort of figure out with that, and it's just not easy to do. So I really think that it's super early when you like Silvergate, for its parts, we bank all of the regulated US dollar-backed transactional perspective. So if you have fiat dollars and you want to get those into USDC or Pax dollar or True USD or the Gemini dollar, that's coming across the rails at Silvergate. And so, but we have 1,200 clients total, and they're institutional clients. And so I think it'll be interesting to see, like in order for DeFi to really take off, you have to have, it has to be easier for people to use it and to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, like DeFi, when I look at DeFi, I think of this is what a bunch of programmers think finance is, right? That's what I think. And the customer experience sucks. I mean, it just is a horrible customer experience. I tried to go in and play Axie Infinity, and then I had to, go to a traditional exchange, buy the Ethereum, move it to the MetaMask, move that to Ronin wallet to wrap it, and then go on and then buy the Axie, and then play the game. And I'm like, I could have just gone onto Apple and then downloaded the app and had a better game, and it would have been a lot cheaper than buying a bunch of Axie Infinity NFTs.
Yep.
Right? So what's the use case for me as a customer to do all of that stuff? It's cool to do it and to say that, but the customer experience, but eventually it's going to get better. And it's going to get better and better and better. And when it does, it's going to wipe out everybody else because it's just more efficient. All the intermediaries are gone. You trust the protocols, but we're a long way away from it actually working.
Right.
Sorry, I got a strong opinion on that one.
Do you think there's a responsibility of these traditional financial institutions to help these DeFi new companies or systems to simplify it, like you were saying, all that complexity?
You're asking me, is traditional finance going to help? No, they're not. No, they're not. Not going to help at all. I mean, the thing of it is, like, the DeFi guys, they want the traditional finance money without the rules, right? They want the money, they don't want the rules. I'm like, it doesn't work that way, right? You have to protect customers, and you have to find a new way to do that. So, they were talking about earlier in the panels, like, how do you have identity in DeFi, right? You do need to have identity. How do you solve that problem? Nobody's thought about that. Well, that's because it was programmers that thought about it, not financial guys. And eventually these problems come up, and that's fine. We'll work out these problems and we'll solve these problems, and what we're going to have will be something that's significantly more efficient. What would be really cool is the day that comes when somebody on one side of the world and somebody on the other side of the world that know nothing about each other are able to do a financial transaction. Maybe it's even, selling a piece of land, right? Without having 500 pages of documents and 5 lawyers in the room and do all that stuff, because we can do it on a blockchain where we have a single source of truth, right? Instead of every single bank has their own ledger and 500 people updating that ledger, and then the transaction goes to another bank and they're doing the same thing. It's really inefficient the way our financial system's built, all right? So those changes will happen, and traditional finance will not help, but they will give us the use cases that we need to do it, and the money will come in. And when I say traditional finance, I mean the guys that don't understand. Right? There are some guys who are in traditional finance companies that understand, and they're beginning to make things happen. And then there are some regulators that understand. But there are auditors that coming into your financial institution don't understand, and they're asking dumb questions. And then you have to explain to them why it's a dumb question, and they don't like you explaining that to them. But that's the way it is today.
I mean, this innovation is bringing a lot of disruption, obviously, and will continue to do so, right? So without making this about DeFi specifically, but with disruption comes opportunity as well. When we talk about digital assets, and I was saying, you talk about tokenization of assets and securities. The ability to connect possibly an asset with a pool of investors that never really connected in a liquid and easy and efficient way before. Those are tremendous opportunities for traditional finance, for the investors, and for those holders, for the asset owners, if you will. So, that disruption is welcome, and innovation is welcome, and the institutions that, recognize it and look to understand it and embrace it get the opportunity. Maybe not everything, and when we speak about DeFi, it's so wide. Like somebody says, you look away for 5 minutes, you miss something, right? And so can I understand it all? No. So I draw a perimeter around what's the opportunity for our clients and for the bank, and we go deep into that.
I think one of the interesting things, so 20 years ago, there were 15,000 banks, something like that. And today there's roughly 5,000 banks. So in 20 years, we've lost 10,000 banks. And so I think the question is, and a lot of those 5,000 banks are still smaller community and regional banks. And I know that my kids are mobile native, they're digital native. They're asking me questions like, Dad, why would I ever go into a bank? Like, why do I need a bank? Like, if I can just, if I've got my savings of $5,000, like I want to put it in a DeFi, protocol or something, because I want to earn a return, and that's just their mentality. And so I think there's a real question about, kind of what happens to banks as DeFi becomes more mainstream, and there's. I think the stage represents, between, BNY and Morgan Stanley, those are massive banks with, big budgets and massive scale and big platforms. So they're going to be fine. And then you've got Silvergate, which is a smaller, innovative bank. And we've been in the space since 2014. So I think we're going to be fine too. But if you're one of those smaller banks, with a couple $100 million in assets, and you're thinking like, I really need to start offering my retail customers Bitcoin so that I can get in on this digital currency thing. I mean, are you going to be around in 5 years or 10 years? Like, I'm not sure. So it'll be interesting to see how that all evolves.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you had this like fintech explosion, if you will. But the fintechs, in the classical sense, I guess, were really just like front ends to traditional finance in many ways. If you look at the Robinhoods using the same settlement network as for the equities that they trade, even if they have a nice front end with zero commission or for fees, for example, there's many others. PayPal was using traditional dollar settlement layers and so forth. I think the big difference is this time when you have the public permissionless blockchain layers as the settlement network, this is really replacing the entire kind of plumbing behind the whole system, which then leads to far more potential for innovation. So it's definitely good to see the bridge between the two worlds when you start to settle 24/7 dollar on these types of networks, and you see the power of these networks and what that could mean for the whole industry, right?
Yeah, so Silvergate's probably best known for the Send network, which allows customers of Silvergate to move US dollars between each other 24/7, 365 in real time, either through our online banking portal or through an API. And so we have, around 1,200 customers, a lot of the firms that you just mentioned, that are using Silvergate and the Send network in order to settle the dollar side of things, and then they're using the blockchain to settle the digital asset side of things. And so it just kind of gets back to like how many, what does that settlement look like? And I think my fear is that, we end up with, fewer financial institutions. And ultimately sort of less competition, but then maybe that's because all of the activity is happening in DeFi. But yeah, and so just to put that in perspective, over the Send network, we're on pace to do about $1 trillion of US dollar transfer versus deposits at our institution from those clients that average about 10 billion. So our clients are turning their US dollars 100 times on an annual basis. So, pretty good scale considering the size of the industry.
All right, I want to go back to regulation. I know we talked about that a little bit, but there's been a lot of conversation about the role regulators will have in the future with digital assets, and there's been talk of them picking winners or losers as a statement. I kind of wanted to hear all of your thoughts on what that would be like, and if you even agree with that.
I'll jump into this one. In my previous position before Ledger, I worked in exchange, so I felt that pain quite a bit. You do have regulators, particularly in the US and the States, particularly New York, where they have capital requirements, right? and they have a certain cost of capital for a hot wallet and a different cost of capital for a cold wallet, right? That is picking a technology, right? Is there a difference between a cold dollar and a hot dollar? No. Why is there a difference in crypto between a cold wallet and a hot wallet? I can understand there's a difference of risk, right? But why do you pick a technology, right? Why don't we pick what is the real risks that are associated with the assets and have a regulatory regime associated with the risks that are associated with the assets? The reason is the regulators don't understand the risks associated with the assets. So they pick the easy one. Okay, I heard of this cold wallet thing, it seems safer. I heard this hot wallet thing, it seems less safe. Fine, but it's not consistent. So I think the regulators are kind of accidentally influencing things. I don't think they want to influence things, and when we've called them out on it, they've listened to us and changed. But there's a lot of education that needs to be done, and the main problem in the US is for an exchange, right, you have to deal with the money transfer license in all 50 states, and it's really a pain in the ass. And then you've got the SEC calling everything a security, and then you've got the CFTC that's saying we own Bitcoin, and then FINRA. I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? We need to have a consistent voice. We need to have consistent definitions. We need to have consistent standards. So for me, it's getting back to the old DOS versus OS, Mac OS conversation, right? Okay, fine. Pick a standard. Let the industry pick a standard. Let the regulators agree that that standard meets their requirements as far as a risk, and let's move on, rather than installing in law things that people don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex one, right? So even the financial market associations, be it GFMA or AFME, all of these different industry bodies which bring together traditional financial players to comment on the regulations. I mean, in the last couple of years, there's been FSB, Financial Stability Board, Bank of International Settlement Pieces. There's been consultations from nearly every major regulatory body you can imagine coming through these associations. And the point is, it takes such time to actually get to the point to publish the paper. And by the time you're even commenting on some of the papers, the space has moved already like 2 stages ahead of the paper that you were talking about. So it's how to put some structure around it that still enables the innovation, but at the same time, have it in a form that's protecting investor safety and ensuring that there's some level of control.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I mean, back to my earlier comment that regulators don't get paid to take risks, and so just trying to keep up with all of the innovation is a challenge enough. I think if you're a bank, it's somewhat simple, right? Because you know who your regulator is.